All right. Hello, everyone. So you have joined our webinar, another edition of Real Estate Investing with Marco. So I'm uber excited today because we do have a very, very, very special guest. It is our first time having a real estate attorney on the show. So this is exciting. So our topic for today is navigating evictions in a post-pandemic market. What landlords need to know. So, of course, my name is Marco Walker. I am the Vice President of Sales with HomeRiver Group. We are a full scale property management company. And then, as my guest, right, I have Miss Gaylene Rogers. I will let her introduce herself. Miss Gaylene.
All right. Thank you so much, Marco, and thank you so much for having me. Yes, my name is Gaylene Rogers. I am the owner of the Lonergan Law Firm, and which is a boutique real estate law firm, as well as a title closing office. At the present time, we close under the with the agency Mutual Title. I have been in Dallas since 1983, so over 40 years, which I hate to admit, but I've been doing real estate law here ever since I showed up. Initially commercial, then in the last 25 years after I started my firm, I've been doing a lot of residential work, including evictions. So that's why Marco and I were talking about it, and that's, I believe, why I'm here today to try to help with the legal aspects, some legal aspects of evictions.
Absolutely. And for everyone that's joined the webinar, as we go through different questions, as me and Galen interact, if you can, please ask your questions in the chat. We will have a question and answer session at the end of this webinar. So excited to understand what thoughts you guys have and questions that you have, of course. So evictions, right? Evictions is a very interesting topic across not just Texas, but many different areas. So no matter if you're in Texas or even North Carolina, Florida, etc., there's going to be some key information that you'll get from this webinar as it pertains, especially if you are self-managing your current properties. And sometimes it's like, hey, what do I do, right? So we're here to help as we can. So I'm going to jump right in. All righty. So, Miss Gaylene, I'm going to start off with a few questions and, we'll just kind of let this thing flow, right?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, let's do it. So, what are the trends you are seeing for evictions? Is volume up or is volume down?
Oh, I believe volume is definitely up, and I believe it's going to continue to go up. Um, since the pandemic was over in 2021, essentially, and since that time, a lot of things have changed regarding the legal aspects of evictions. And here now recently, my eviction practice is busier than it has been, I believe, has ever been. And the same thing is true for foreclosures as well. So which is not good, but that's what we're seeing.
Hmm. Okay. So, just from your experience, right? As you say, volume is up. So, what do you attest to? The volume increase in eviction. What are some of those maybe factors or reasons that have caused evictions to maybe increase?
Well, of course, in Dallas, the rents have been going up, okay, and in a lot of instances, it's hard for people to find a, a place to live that is affordable for their income. At the same time, their income is not going up, and in fact, may be going the other way. And if there's a two-family house and one of them loses their job, that is a prime issue regarding eviction because they can't afford it. Um, I, I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, but that really is the issue, and we don't have enough, at least in Dallas, that I see enough affordable housing. We're behind. The pandemic put everything behind as far as construction of new homes, new places to live, which makes the existing ones pricier because there's less availability.
Wow. You brought, definitely some interesting topics that, companies like ours at HomeRiver Group, as well as other third-party property management companies, institutional property management companies, these are things that we talk about every single day, right? Is, the shortage of inventory, right, that you're speaking to across many different territories and states, but also, the inventory that is existing, that inventory being affordable, right, for your average American. And, these are all things that I think, we're tackling together, and we'll continue to get better and better and better,
Yeah,
as I
absolutely,
think.
Marco, because the mom and pop landlords, okay, they're caught between a rock and a hard place because
Mhm.
they have to make their rents affordable, but at the same time, their real estate taxes are going up, their costs, the mortgage, the interest rates are higher, okay? So they have to get a certain return in order for them to stay afloat. So it's really a problem that is difficult to solve.
Yes. No, no, it makes so much sense. So with that being said, right, are there rules that were applied to evictions during the pandemic that still apply today?
Yes, there are. You wouldn't think so, would you, since the pandemic ended back in 2021, in the middle of 2021, actually. So, during the pandemic, so many people were put out of work by the shutdown and everything. And so a lot of people were unable to pay their rent. And the government, both local and federal, put certain laws and ordinances in place to try to keep, mass homelessness, quite frankly. Now, most of them have been repealed or have expired. But there is one in particular, and it's called the CARES Act. And I have to apologize because I don't recall exactly what CARE stands for, but it was the law that was passed by the government, the federal government, in during the pandemic that put a lot of different restrictions in place. All of them have gone away with the exception of one, which, if the property of the landlord is subject to the CARES Act, then the landlord has to give a 30-day notice to vacate as opposed to a 3 or 10-day. And it's applicable if the landlord's property was financed through an FHA loan, VA loan, Fannie Mae loan, Freddie Mac loan, any government backed loan. And that part has not gone away. Now, what I see though is a lot of judges, JPs, they don't care. They don't bring it up, but I was just in 2 hearings this morning, and that is the first question that the judge asked me. Is the CARES Act applicable? No, Your Honor. And so our 10-day notice to vacate was held up, was approved. So that's really the main thing. That City of Dallas had some ordinances that required a 21-day notice before you ever even sent your notice to vacate. Thankfully, that has gone away because that caught a lot of landlords unaware.
Absolutely. And it's, for, obviously with HomeRiver Group, we are a national company with resources. However, we're talking about as you said, right? You have different types of landlords in today's world. You have more intentional landlords who are investors, and they're going out and they're buying properties to either flip or hold. You have accidental landlords, right? And these are
Right?
sometimes people who, I may own a house and then my job relocates me, or I get a promotion, I have to move to a different state. However, what I purchased my house for, right? And what I can sell my house, there's a variance there, and I can't take that loss right now. So it's more affordable or it's more advantageous for me to rent my house at that time. And now I'm a landlord. So in those scenarios, right, there's an education gap on how to handle an eviction, or how to go through and know the different statutes or ordinance that you talked about within your given city, county, as well as state. So definitely any landlords that we have on the webinar today, if you're not part of the Home River family, I do encourage you to reach out to a local attorney, just to understand exactly what's going on in your area to make sure that you are legally compliant as you're managing your own properties. Of course, you can reach out to a property management company like ours, but if you do choose to self manage, please make sure that you are legally compliant. So, great, great discussion points. Um, so, next question I do have is: has the enforcement of rules changed since the pandemic?
The enforcement by the judges,
Yeah, just the
by the
enforcement of of the different rules that we have. So, like you talked about the CARES Act, and some of these different ordinances and statutes. Do you feel like our court system is still ultimately backed up? Do you feel like our court system is moving through the eviction timelines, pre-pandemic, or is it still delayed? And how's that enforcement?
Yeah, and well, of course, mainly, I mean, my most of the evictions I do, not all, but most of them are in Dallas County. So, and it's, one of the largest counties in the state. And it, quite frankly, where I see that it's backed up, not necessarily in the JP court, because they are moving, whenever we do file for a petition for eviction, we do get a hearing relatively quickly. But when you get to county court, that's where you can definitely see things being backed up. Um, in Dallas County, the county courts at law have exclusive jurisdiction as far as eviction appeals. And I'll just tell you, Marco, in what I've been doing, 90% of the tenants appeal from the JP court. They appeal with an inability to pay affidavit, saying they don't have the money to pay the bond, so they're going to county court. Now, county court in Dallas, in fact, they now have two full-time visiting judges at the county court level in Dallas, that's all that they do is evictions. The county court at law, the regular five courts, they don't handle evictions anymore because the workload is so heavy. Okay. So
Mhm.
they have two special courtrooms that are handled by visiting judges, and that's all they do is evictions. So that is evidence that things are still pretty heavy as far as evictions is concerned.
So
Um,
let me ask you a quick question, just to, not sure if you have your timelines in front of you, but I'm just curious of a general answer, right?
sure.
So, from the time that you file, right, to
Uh-huh.
the time that, there's an eviction or a set out, where that particular owner can obtain possession of their property back. In Dallas County, you're specific to here in Dallas. So in this county, what is that timeline? Is it 2 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Just overall
Yeah.
average, if you could.
Well, I'm going to give you a lawyer answer. It depends. Okay. My husband used to complain, "Can I never get a straight answer out of you?" I said, I was trained not to say yes and no. I was trained to say it depends. But it depends. Now, and like I said, didn't want to give you the impression that I don't do evictions outside of Dallas. I do them in Fort Worth. I do them all over.
Yeah.
But the most of them end up coming up in Dallas. But um from the time, you give your notice to vacate, you have to wait until that notice to vacate period has expired. So let's just say 10 days there. Then you can immediately file a petition with the court. The court generally takes about, they generally set the hearings for anywhere from 10 to 14 days in it down the road. Okay. So then we have the hearing. And if we get a judgment, then there's a 5 day waiting period to allow the tenant time to appeal. So now we're at anywhere from 15 to 20 days right there.
Mhm.
If they appeal, well, let me back up. If they don't appeal, let's just take that first. If they don't appeal, then as soon as the 5 days have expired, then we can request what's called a writ of possession, which is just an order from the court saying you are entitled to possession and entitled to, set the people out. So at that point, when we get the writ of possession, that usually takes another day for the court to issue it to us. And then it's sent over to whatever constable, whatever precinct that the property is in, to the constable's office. They usually follow up with the landlord within 5 days, maybe sooner. It just depends. It just depends on which constable you get. It gets sent to, whatever. And then the constable arranges with the landlord for a specific date to do a set out.
All
And
right.
so usually you're looking at about 45 days, start to finish, if there's no appeal. If there is an appeal,
Mm-hmm.
then after that 5 days, the tenant has to file an appeal. And like I said, they're supposed to post a bond, but if they can show that they don't have the money to
Mm-hmm.
post a bond, then they can appeal with an affidavit of inability to pay. Then the county court will set a hearing. Now that is what's taken a little bit longer. I would say it's anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks before the county court sets the court date. And then we have the hearing. We have another hearing. It's an all new, from the beginning hearing. And at that point, you have to provide testimony. It's a lot more formal than the JP hearing. Okay. So then, if the landlord wins there, then it's again that 5 day period for them to appeal, which the only appeal they would have at that point is to appeal to the Texas Court of Appeals. But they
Okay.
can do that. They can do that, but they have to post a bond. And generally it's much more difficult to appeal without posting a bond than it is from JP court to county court. So if that all happens, then you're looking more like 60 to 75 days to get set out.
Wow. So
Yeah.
we're talking about as quick, and this means that, I mean, you're rocking and rolling, right? You're doing every single thing you're supposed to do, submitting the right paperwork, and you're not missing a beat. That's 45 roughly to 60 days. And if there's an appeal in the process, what I'm hearing is that can be upwards to 75 to 90 days. Now,
Yes.
that's, you know, that's a long time period of lost revenues, right?
Correct.
And you not having possession of your property, which means that your property, there's things that could be going on with your property as far as damage,
Absolutely.
et cetera, et cetera. I will say, Galen, is my coworkers, my partners, and different investors, etc., that are on the East Coast, and some of the other Sun Belt states are very jealous of you that you have a 45-day to worst
Yes,
case
that
scenario
is true.
90-day timeline, because it's in the East Coast and other areas you're talking about a 6 month to, in some cases, a 12-month timeline from when you file or give notice, rather notice of vacate, to when you do actually have the set out or eviction process. So yeah, this really is a great segue into just the pitfalls. And when I say pitfalls, what are some of those, I'll say challenges, right? And, problems that a do it yourself landlord can really run up against in the eviction, world.
Absolutely. So what I just described to you is a perfect situation. Okay. I mean, everything goes the way it's supposed to. That's the time period that I described to you. But if the landlord doesn't do exactly what the Texas property code requires, they can get kicked out at the JP court and have to completely start over. And there's no end to that until you get it right. And that, I know I've been around a long time, 40 odd years. And I know a lot of people used to do their own evictions,
Hmm.
because they don't want to pay that lawyer's fee to do all that. And I understand that. But the problem is now that may be false economy. Okay, because since the pandemic, other things have changed. Primarily, prior to the pandemic, I would say it was unusual for a tenant to have legal representation.
Okay.
Okay, usually the landlord was there and the tenant was there. No one had legal representation. All right.
Hmm.
Now, when the pandemic developed, and I'm not saying this is bad, good, indifferent, but once the pandemic happened and there was all the evictions and whatnot, a lot of resources have come into play for tenants. There's always been, legal aid. That's always been available to them. But now in the Metroplex, I will say there is a group of attorneys and more power to them. Good for them. They formed a company called the Eviction Advocacy Center, and they run it as a nonprofit. They employ attorneys, and they send these attorneys out all over. I mean, doesn't matter which JP court I go to, Garland, South Dallas, Grand Prairie. I was in Grand Prairie this morning. Wherever I am, there's generally a table there
Absolutely.
with a sign that says free representation for tenants.
Wow.
Okay. And those attorneys know what to look for. Again, it's all a delay tactic, right? They pretty much know unless they can work some deal out with the landlord, all they can do is delay the landlord in kicking them
Absolutely.
out, right? So that's what they are trying to do. They're trying to pour over the notices to vacate, the petitions, whether the CARE Act applies, and so that if a landlord has run afoul of any of that, they're going to bring it up in the hearing, and the judge is going to dismiss it, and the landlord's going to start all over.
Absolutely. And before I segue into, really our last question, which is what advice would you give a do-it-yourself landlord that is doing their own evictions? Before I do go into your answer of that question, I'll restate the question. Um, just some advice in general to landlords, right? Um, it is very, very important if you are going to manage your own property. It is important that you are doing your research of what's required for your property to be a legal rental,
Right.
right? So,
Absolutely. Oh, that is certainly true, because nearly all of the towns now have ordinances regarding being a legal landlord, what you have to do before
Absolutely.
you can even rent it. You're correct.
Absolutely.
And
And
then
that's
also, yeah, also I just wanted to say, you, because I didn't really answer your question, the
yeah,
pitfalls are the notice, having an inaccurate petition and not having their sufficient evidence. And the notice, what's required for notice is spelled out in the Texas Property Code. You can send it regular mail. I don't advise that because you don't have any proof that you sent it. You can send it certified mail. That's what I do for all my clients. I send the notice to vacate by certified mail, and then I print off the postal services tracking that shows that it was delivered. And that's sufficient for judges. Or you can personally hand deliver it to the person. There's no problem with that. But if they're not there, that's where a lot of landlords run into trouble. Because
mhm,
the property code specifically says, uh, yeah, let me see, I got it written down, the specifics. You can affix a notice to the outside of the entry door in a sealed envelope containing the notice with the tenant's name and address, and in all capital letters, the words important document. And then you have to mail that the same day. Now, I always, if we have to resort to that, I always tell my landlords, take a picture that
absolutely.
shows exactly that that's all been complied with. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because a lot of them don't know to put important document. They can get thrown out for just not putting the words important document on there. And then the inaccurate petition, I just wanted to say, um, if you're evicting for non-payment of rent, make sure that's what your petition says. If you're evicting for violation of some provisions of the lease,
Hmm.
then do not say non-payment of rent. You've got to specifically spell out what you're evicting them for. And additionally, if for whatever reason, I have a client that they are a corporate client and they let people go, their rents are really high and they let people go for months before they kick them out. In JP court, you cannot ask for more than $20,000. Anything over $20,000, the judge will say, ah, that's out of my jurisdiction. So you're not going to get a judgment for rent if you ask for more than $20,000. Today, I had to cut it down so that I only asked for 20,000, even though they owed more. But we couldn't get a judgment from the JP if I did that. And then lastly, make sure that you have to provide evidence of military status. Uh, JPs will kick that out if you don't provide that. So those are kind of the pitfalls for do-it-yourselfers.
Absolutely. This is if you're on this webinar, I hope you have your pen and I hope you have your paper. Of course, we'll have this webinar on our YouTube page as far as HomeRiver Group. Please subscribe. We'll have different clips on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc. So you'll be able to play it back. But important to take notes. We'll have Miss Gaylene's contact information at the end of this particular webinar. So please, this is free information right now, everyone. So please make sure you're taking notes. Come on. All right. So transitioning into the last question, right, which is what advice would you give a do-it-yourself landlord that is doing their own evictions?
Well, of course, it's going to sound like I'm trying to drum up business, but at a minimum, I think you need to at least consult with a lawyer because the laws and the norms and everything are changing continually. So just because you did things one way some time ago, that might not be the way that it has to be done now. The legislature just met. I'm not aware of any changes in the statute, but in the property code as far as evictions, but that doesn't mean there weren't any. I just haven't, it's so recent, I just haven't delved into it yet. But so things can change. And so at least I would say spend a little money to consult with the lawyer so they could advise you. But quite frankly, the best way to go is to get an expert to help you with that, because there's just, like I said, the biggest problem for landlords is it already takes, if everything goes perfectly, 60 to 75 days, okay, or 45 to 60 days. If you have to start over again, then you're going to add another 30 to 45 days on top of that. And there's, like you said, there's no revenue coming in during that period. And also try to work something, if it's possible, try to work something out with your tenant. Um, when I get to county court, every judge requires us to conference and try to reach an agreement. If you can reach the sooner, if you can reach an agreement that, hey, you won't get an eviction, go forward to get an eviction on their record if they agree to move out here, by this certain time,
Absolutely.
a lot of people would take that up.
Absolutely. And to your point, right? Going through the eviction process, everyone, if you're talking 3 months, if you usually, depending on the area and county, you have an average rent of about $2,000 per month. So 3 month period, easy math, that's $6,000 of vacancy loss that you have because ultimately your home is occupied, but you're not collecting rate revenue, right? So that's lost revenue that you have. On top of that, the period of over that 30 to 60 or 90-day time frame, there's a higher probability of your property, getting damaged and increasing, right, the amount of time as well as money that it takes to get your property back rent ready, right? So it's very important, and as Miss Gaylene said, hiring a professional to be able to walk you through and guide you through these processes is very important. I'll say no matter if you choose not to hire HomeRiver Group, this is not a sales pitch, but I always encourage any investor, if you are out there and you're purchasing properties or you're an accidental landlord, it's better to have and hire a professional property management company, even if it's not HomeRiver Group, right? It's going to help you ensure that your property is legally compliant, and then also you're moving through these different timelines efficiently and effectively, because that's what this company does every single day. So this has been great. I think it's time to let's answer some questions. So please, if you guys are still on this webinar, it looks like we still have a very sizable amount of people on here. We're going to jump into our question and answer session. So we have a couple questions already in here, so I'll kind of start. So let's see here. How often? So this question is from an anonymous attendee. So it says, how often are you seeing cash for keys instead of a normal eviction?
That absolutely. That is, I do see that. I do see that frequently. Usually, of course, usually I'm not involved when that happens. If the landlord can work something out with them cash for keys, they not calling me. They took care of it on their own. But yes, that does happen quite a bit.
Perfect. All right. So next question is from Ed. It says, is there a quick litmus test to determine if a state is landlord friendly versus tenant friendly?
Oh, I don't know. You may have an answer regarding that. I mean, Google is a great source, for just Google the question.
Yeah,
What are the laws regarding eviction in whatever state?
what I would say is definitely use Google. You have ChatGPT and other AI tools. Also, you have different state have licenses, business licenses, rental licenses, rental registrations. There's different um, you know, requirements to make a property a legal rental. So I would say a state that has more of those restrictions or requirements, et cetera, it's more than likely going to be a more tenant friendly state versus a state that does not have as many requirements of the landlord. It's more than likely going to be a more landlord friendly state. So that's a quick, I would say, litmus test that you can definitely do.
It's a great suggestion. Absolutely.
All righty. This question is from David. It says, I'm curious on the eviction application numbers and has that increased from last year? What have you seen different as trends from blue states versus red states?
Yeah, and Marco, you may know more about the state to state. I mean, I do know the red state. I mean, I do know without getting into politics, I do know the red states are hurting. Okay? I do know that. So it would make sense that they may be up in the red states. I don't know about the blue states. I don't live in one. I don't work in one.
And
But
what my advice? Oh, sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
David, my advice would definitely be to connect with your local network, whether that's attorney in your local network or a property management company in your local network. If you're an investor, we'll be able to kind of go over, just some of what you can expect. I would say when renting out your property, et cetera, from all different angles and any questions that you may or may not have.
Yeah,
So
and deal with a national company like Marco's company because they know they may be able to advise you regarding that situation.
absolutely. Next question is from Raphael. What are some guidelines for having the settlement discussion with tenants going through eviction process? Working with property managers to have a discussion, hire attorney, question mark. Any info would be greatly appreciated.
Well, I believe that property managers like your company are very savvy on how to handle this settlement discussions with tenants. Obviously, I have done some of that for landlords. Usually what happens with me is they've tried all that and have been unsuccessful in settling with them. And that's when I get called in. What about you? What do you see?
Yeah, so great question from Raphael. I think as far as the difference with so I've been an individual just landlord, right? And then also working with a property management company for my investment properties. I think the difference is you have where most, I would say, whether you're an investor or an accidental landlord, your majority of your time is usually spent either scaling your business, right? If you're an entrepreneur or investor, which means you're looking at deals to get more properties, or an accidental landlord, which means you're working probably a 9 to 5, just like me, right? So your time is very tied up. So as far as communicating with a resident and giving a resident really what they want and what they actually need, which is consistent communication and to not just feel like a number, but to feel like I like the word resident versus tenant, right? You want your someone who's occupying your home to feel like a resident and not necessarily a tenant. And that takes care, that takes hands-on, that takes
Absolutely.
communication. So that's what you get with a property management company is the consistent communication and being there and having the small of their back. So I think, not answering your question directly, but ultimately through that communication, we have a rapport with said resident, right? So now we can look at settlement options. We can really understand their intimate situation that they're going through and really give them the options that we're privy to help them through this situation, the hard time that they're going through. Good question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So next question is, while the tenant is under eviction, is the landlord obligated to fix any major repairs? Great question.
Well, the again, it depends, but the quick answer is no, they are not, other than if it is a life-threatening, if it's a safety and security or life-threatening situation. If there's the lock on the door is broken, yes, they have to fix that. If there's a flood going on in the unit, yes, they have to fix that. But other than that, no. You agree with that, Marco?
Yeah, yeah, I would, sum it up as far as like habitability, right?
Correct.
Is usually, and I would say just Google that word, right? What makes a home habitable? So, yeah, I would kind of leave it there because it is so dependent, right? And it can fluctuate. But definitely do your research and research what makes a home habitable. Great
Correct.
question. So next question is, let's see, how is cash for keys best implemented? Is an escrow established that pays the squatter after they vacate your house? So I'll take that one.
Okay.
As it pertains to cash for keys, there's a few different ways that can go. I would say cash for keys is not as prevalent as it once was during the pandemic, right? Many different property management companies, large and small, definitely use cash for keys as a way to obtain your properties and gain possession back. It depends really on the property manager as far as how they're going to manage and handle the cash for keys initiative, as well as the accounting department. There's very different very specifics that go into that of course impact the financials, right? So, very vague answer, but I would say this is where you would, hire an expert, a property management company, attorneys, etc., and then we'll be able to get more specific on those particular topics. But it is still an option, and something that we can help you work through. Next question is a pretty quick one, and I can almost guess Ms. Gaylene's answer. What is the attorney cost for an eviction?
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you the attorney answer. It depends. But I try to have a set fee I break up into three phases because it is possible that when we first send out a notice to vacate, that they actually vacate, right?
Mhm.
And then it is possible that if when we file a petition, that they actually vacate before we have to go to court. And then it is possible, then when we have to go to court. So I split my fees up three ways, 1/3 each way, so that nobody's paying me for more than what I'm doing for them. And then
Love
if we have, yeah, and then if we have to go on an appeal, then there's an extra fee for that. But the answer is it depends.
it. No, good question. Um, Good answer as well. So, next question is from Kyrie. It says, "How long does having a proper, or I'm sorry, how does having a property management company assist in the eviction process?" Very, very quick answer is most, if not all, property management companies work with local attorneys in that given state, county, etc. So we, even as property management companies, we do defer to our local partners as far as attorneys. The difference is that we understand notices and the different types of notices that you send out at different timelines of the process. And it's on sometimes the property management company partner with your attorney partners, right, to issue those notices within a certain time frame and in a certain way. So just being able to have your partner go through that process is uber important. So that's really the connection, I would say, with having a property management company is we do this every single day, as far as anything dealing with the property, from evictions to maintenance to making your home, make ready. We handle it all. So definitely recommend, if not Home River Group, definitely hire a property management company. I promise you, it is worth the spend. Hire an attorney, it is worth the spend. And ultimately, you're saving yourself thousands of dollars by hiring a professional. Next question is from 10. Is the eviction harder and longer for the landlord if the tenant has young children?
Well, legally speaking, it makes no difference. Okay, it really doesn't. You know, certain judges may be more inclined. They follow the law. The judges follow the law. It doesn't matter what their personal feelings are, okay, about a family situation or whatever. They have to follow the law. And so it really doesn't make a difference other than, I mean, but I do think that it's possible that, you might be able to work something out with them more easily because they do have small children that they want to take care of and protect. I don't know what you think about that, Marco.
No, completely agree. I think it's, that's the hard part, right? We're all human at the end of the day, and we all have a heart. And I think as a landlord, sometimes your heart is in the right place, right? And you're doing the right thing from a heart standpoint. However, sometimes it's not the right path or the right decision from a legal perspective, where you're not following the right laws, even though you're doing what's right for the heart, which can put you in jeopardy, or put your property at risk, and yourself at risk. So it's very important to, hire an attorney, or if you're self managing, to, follow the law to a T. And, even though it's the right thing sometimes to make exceptions, sometimes you have to, be a little hesitant on certain exceptions, because it can put you at risk. And that's why I always say, no matter what it is in life, it's better to hire a professional. My fiance knows I am not a plumber. If something breaks in this house that needs plumbing or anything, I'm probably
Yeah.
not going to try to fix it, right? Because that
Right.
is not my expertise. I'd rather hire an expert, that's going to get the job done right, fast, so that I can move on with my day, and ultimately I save myself time. So, last
Yeah.
question that will.
Well,
Oh,
let me throw something real quick in there, Marco.
mhm.
What I tell my clients, if they are feeling that they want to work with them, the best thing to do is to continue and get your judgment, and get your writ of possession. You do not have, I mean, at that point, you're in control, and you then can decide to give them extra time or work some situation. You have 60 days before that writ of possession is no longer valid. So if you at that point wanted to work with them somehow, you can do that, but you would be in control.
Absolutely. Um, Last question here, last question is, I have a property in Houston with a tenant who came from Ukraine, on a federal protection program. They have lost their status and need to terminate the lease. Do I have any legal recourse outside of normal procedures?
Well, if they're being deported, which that question leads me to believe that if they've lost their status, they may be subject to being deported. Obviously, you can get a judgment against them, but it's not going to be, if they're deported, you're probably not going to be able to enforce it in any way.
Absolutely. Well, that's all of our questions. I know there's a couple more in there, and feel free to continue to ask questions. Uh, we're going to show our contact information here. I'll let Gaylene go as far as you if you can go through your contact information. So tell people how to get in contact with you, how to work with you, and ultimately how to partner with you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, my office is located right here, centrally located right here at the intersection, at the High Five intersection. We're on the southwest side of 635 and 75. And I have an email address. It's grogers@lonerganlaw.com. That we're showing our phone number. We try to answer every call that comes in here. We don't have an AI phone answering system or anything like that. We have real people and we try to talk to them, talk to everybody that calls in. And I would love to work with I work with a lot of investors. I'd love to work with any that are watching today.
Absolutely. And I know we had several property management related questions. Please feel free to email marketing@homeriver.com ask any questions that you may or may not have. I am very, very accessible on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Instagram is Investing with Marco. Definitely follow us, follow our YouTube channel, Home River Group, connect with us on LinkedIn. We are happy to serve, but at the same time, what we believe in at Home River and just personally is collaboration over competition. And really, all that means is if you don't hire us, that's okay. Just hire someone, and that's what's important. So, we truly, truly appreciate every single person joining real estate investing with Marco. Completely appreciate Gaylene from the Lonergan law firm coming on and sharing her expertise with all of us. So, everyone, have a wonderful Tuesday. I will leave you with this. If you are Home River Group, we will be at Inman Conference in San Diego starting tomorrow. So excited to connect with any realtors, brokers, etc. Let's figure out how we can partner with you and your clients, as well as you can partner with Gaylene as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.